Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our third episode. We are going to focus today on prioritizing our own well being. So, let's start off with a little bit of a review of what we've already discussed. As a mental health professional, you know the value of self care. You teach these benefits to every client who walks through your door. And of course, you really believe in them. Yet, you struggle to follow through with your own self care. We have a tendency to do what we can, such as the occasional massage, taking a walk at lunch, maybe doing something to splurge one day, getting that special latte or a special lunch one day during the week. But these small gestures, while they're nice, do little to help with the underlying stress of our job. That's because self care is not a single act. It's a practice that requires you to continuously prioritize your own well being, even when it's difficult to do so. So, for a clinician, for a mental health worker, your self care might look like setting boundaries, doing more of what you love, finding meaning outside of work, examining unhelpful beliefs, and again, seeking clinical supervision. So, when we talk about setting boundaries, self advocacy is the most important step within self care. As a clinician, this means protecting your time, your energy, and your caseload. So, if you work in an agency, there are limits on what you can change, but don't assume that everything is set in stone. It's important for you to advocate for your needs and explore where adjustments can be made. So, some things that you can do to help with this: reflect on the biggest challenges of your workday. Is it maybe one or two particular clients that you work with? Is it a certain diagnosis that you feel ill equipped to treat? Maybe it's simply too large of a caseload. And after reflecting on what you need, talk to your supervisor and assertively but tactfully ask if a change can be made that will help you serve your clients more effectively. It's helpful for you to prepare some solutions ahead of time. Now, I will say, as a supervisor, that there are times when people come to me and they may say, I don't feel comfortable treating such and such condition. And part of my role as a supervisor is to encourage you to expand beyond what you may already feel comfortable with. That's how we grow as professionals. So it's about kind of the give and take in that within supervision as well, where you're talking about this is what I feel uncomfortable with and this is where I'm struggling. And recognizing when it truly is like that hard line, like I can't do this, versus I can try, but I'm going to need additional support from you, my supervisor. The next step about self advocacy and setting boundaries for yourself is committing to ending sessions on time. So be conscientious of your pacing during sessions so that the heaviest moments occur toward the middle of the hour or however long you meet, leaving plenty of time of your client to explore and regain composure before it's time to leave. The wrap up process should begin before it's time for the session to end. Agenda driven treatment is very helpful with this. It's one of, a great tool kind of breaking down your session to look like, how much time are we going to spend doing each little activity that we need to do. But it's also important, again, that you set these boundaries early on with your sessions with your clients so that they know that the session isn't about spending the entire time venting and very little time actually working through and processing something. Because if they vent for the entire hour, you're not going to have time for them to regain composure, and they're going to walk out your door feeling just as stressed, just as anxious as they may have when they walked in the door. And you're going to be feeling just as stressed and just as anxious because then you feel like maybe you didn't actually accomplish anything within that session for your client. Don't check emails, text, messages off work hours. Okay? Clients should be clearly informed of your communication boundaries during the intake process, including information about who they should contact during an emergency and how they should schedule or cancel appointments. If you find it challenging to ignore work emails after hours or messages or anything else, set your phone to show email notifications only at certain times. And give yourself permission to be free from work on your mind in those off work hours. Before the end of the day, write down tomorrow's tasks and then leave them until tomorrow. Say to yourself, I'm done for the day. Yeah, I was actually speaking to someone earlier this week that they will not leave until everything is done. And that sometimes pushes them past our 5 o'clock timeline. And although it's okay sometimes, we might flex our time and be able to stay a little bit later, whether it's to work with a client to better manage their schedule, or maybe we just got caught up and we want to make sure that all of our notes are done for the day. But make sure that you're sticking to a regular schedule and you're not forcing yourself to stay later than you're really physically or mentally able to do. Have a clear cut time when you're going to end your day and make sure that you truly end it and don't do anything regarding work after work hours. Now, if you're a supervisor, some of the things that we can help with this is check in regularly with our supervisees regarding their caseloads and ask what support they need. Be mindful of the limited breaks that they have throughout the day and help them figure out ways to protect their lunch and administrative time. And if we work in an agency or even in a private practice, make sure that we have systems in place to handle those after hours communications with clients. Self care isn't just about working less and setting those healthy boundaries during your workday. It can also mean leaning into the type of work you most enjoy. You might find certain client issues more draining while others energize you. And research actually shows that identifying and using your strengths tends to decrease stress. Even if major changes to your jobs aren't possible, you might still have some leeway to make your strengths a bigger part of your work. Working the same number of hours but with a population you love can make all the difference. So spend some time and identify your strengths. Ask yourself, what aspects of your work have been the most rewarding? What makes you feel the most energized? And share those strengths and interests with your supervisor to help them understand how you thrive with certain populations. Lean into your niche. If you're in private practice, don't feel like you have to market to every issue and demographic. Instead, focus your energy on your strengths. Being upfront about your focus may actually help you bring in more clients. Now, of course, that part is a little bit easier within private practice as opposed to working with an agency where we tend to be kind of given whatever clients are assigned to us. But again, we can still have those conversations with our supervisor and talk about where our strengths lie and where our interests lie, and maybe ask for more clients that fit that kind of demographic as opposed to others. Again, if you're a supervisor, discuss this type of work that most energizes your clinicians and consider adjusting their job accordingly. Mental health workers tend to give a lot of themselves during their day, their time, their energy, their motivation, just their mental capacity, so that by the time the end of the day comes and you're going home, there's little energy left for yourself. So naturally, a work life balance will require you to cultivate a life you love outside of the office. So think about what are some of those things and those interests that you have that help you feel energized. It's tempting just to zone out after work, and this is okay, but it won't offer long term benefits. Instead, know that you often have to spend energy to get energy. Find some social activities that help you relax. For some, this may mean spending time with friends. Just be careful not to let work talk dominate your conversations, which is of course easy to do because most of the friends that we end up making work in the same field as we do, and we all talk about the stressors and the things that kind of drive us crazy about working in this field. But we should be enjoying that time together, not just focusing on shop talk. Lastly, when we're talking about finding meaning outside of work, is know when you would benefit from time alone. you know, there's so much of that social energy that we have to give during our workday that sometimes we need to just recharge our batteries and take some time to ourselves. So, spending time alone is a valid way to also be able to spend your time and be able to give you what you need for your own self care. And finding ways to be able to do that can be difficult, especially when we have families that may revolve around us. So, making those opportunities and talking about that with your family is about how do you get some of that alone time and valuing that. Now, if you're a supervisor, once again, advocate for your clinicians to receive frequent paid time off and encourage them to actually use this. And as I say this, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, right. Because that can be really difficult to do, especially when you work in an agency and especially under a managed care kind of facility, because we know that we are severely limited on the amount of sick time or pay time off, like vacation time that we actually get. We get in our agency like 5 sick days a year, and then you slowly accrued pay time off. Um, And it's like you get 1 hour for every 20 hours that you work. It's kind of ridiculous how little time off that you actually get, unless you're just kind of sitting there burning away every single day. And when you're someone like me who has a lot of other health conditions, you burn through your sick time, and then whatever little bit you have is like paid time off as well pretty quickly. So, this really is not just about encouraging staff to use their time, but again, when we talk about that collective responsibility, what are we doing as mental health workers to advocate for this need ourselves? We know this is important. We talk about this as a whole, but are we actually living what we talk about? And that's probably a much bigger discussion than any of this time will allow. And lastly, as a supervisor, be open to flexible scheduling that suits your clinicians. Especially those that maybe work with kids, or if you're working with someone or a population that works during the day, a lot of time you have to wait till those later appointments to be able to see your clients. So we can't expect a staff member to come in at 8 a.m. and still be working at 8 p.m. at night. So, what do we do to allow them that flexibility and that time within their schedule to meet the needs of their clients while not burning them out? The beliefs you bring to your work also hugely shape your experience. So, negative or unrealistic thoughts can make any experience feel unmanageable. Be on the lookout for beliefs that create unneeded stress. So we might need to spend a little time doing some of our own Socratic questioning and, studying our own schemas about our beliefs about what we should be doing as a provider in this field, and spending some time of identifying what maybe our own unhealthy beliefs are and working to reframe that into more helpful modifications. When you catch yourself ruminating on helpful thoughts, take a step back and reflect on how just being there can mean the world to someone. Recognize that your role may be helping your clients feel safe, heard, and understood, often in ways that they have never experienced before. And this alone can be healing. I mention a lot of time in supervision, especially for those that are struggling with this very idea that clients maybe aren't making progress on kind of a timeline that often managed care or insurance is set. Like, you have 8 sessions and you better heal them in those 8 sessions. To really kind of take that step back and look at and say, if they feel comfortable sharing with you and they have been able to at least open up and start their journey for healing, you've made progress. If you've allowed them a safe place where they can talk about what they need to talk about and recognize maybe they're not alone and that there are people out there who can understand them, again, this is healing for them. It may even be beneficial for them to start seeking some of those natural supports outside of the mental health experience. So spend some time in being on the alert to reflect on whether or not you carry any unrealistic beliefs about your role as a mental health provider. For example, look out for the cognitive distortions such as all or nothing thinking. If I can't help everyone, I'm useless. Or disqualifying the positive, like ignoring all the good work you do by focusing on the one client who asked for a new therapist. And talk to the therapist and other mental health workers who have worked in the field for many years. They will often have a more balanced perspective, and ask them what they wish they would have known early in their careers. And like I said in the first episode of this podcast, I wish I had been doing this and focusing on self care and having better boundaries when I first started so that I didn't crash and burn. And once again, if you are a supervisor, be conscientious of listening when clinicians and your staff seem to be struggling, and consider interventions such as increased supervision or even referring them to their own personal therapy. And support clinicians in taking work time to meet with their own therapist if that's what they choose to do. Now, this last thought for the day are for those of you who have been in the field forever. And those of you who may be independently licensed. So, all you LPCs, LCSWs, LMFTs, and so on and so forth. We know that practicing can be incredibly rewarding. We wouldn't be in the field 20 plus years later if it wasn't. But it can also be exhausting and lonely, especially when we get to these higher levels, because we don't have as much supervision as maybe the staff that are newer or still at that bachelor's or master's level before they become independently licensed. So, working day in and day out with difficult issues and traumas, as we well know, can take a huge emotional toll. Confidentiality constraints mean that we can't discuss our work with friends or family. So, clinical supervision isn't just for interns or BHTs. Those of us that have been in this field for a long period of time at any stage of our career can benefit from a second perspective and support. Talking with a clinical supervisor or peer support group of other mental health professionals can really help you process the struggles that arise from your work with clients. Or as other supervisors, talking with other supervisors can really help you be able to process some of the struggles that come from being a supervisor. So seek that kind of support, whether it's additional supervision for yourself or a peer support group. Again, even those of us that are seasoned in the field can benefit from new perspectives and added support. And always take the opportunity to pursue further training. Identify areas where you struggle, then search for classes and trainings to build your confidence. If you are a supervisor, provide supervision even after it's no longer required. So, those of us within the mental health field, again, that are independently licensed, we're not required to have supervision. And oftentimes, even agencies no longer require clinical supervision or clinical oversight for someone who's independently licensed. And most of us move into supervisory positions after that time. There are very few, in the agency that I work with at the independent license level that are really truly have caseloads anymore. Unless it's a really tiny one, like I have the 9 clients that I work with. So we should be considering, what are we doing to continue to provide clinical oversight or support to those who are now independently licensed. They still need us. I still need it. I reach out to my supervisor all the time and talk about things, especially when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed and I feel like I've hit a wall. And encourage your clinicians to attend trainings for new topics. This acts as a break from the day to day and a way to build competency in new areas. Now, just like doctors need to learn new ways of performing surgery, we need to learn new ways of performing therapy. We need to keep on top of that professional development and learning what new research is out there so that we can continue to build on our own skills and also refresh the ideas that we have in working with our members and our clients. Being a mental health worker is tough, but work-life balance is possible. Many people get into the field to help others, and helping yourself is an important part of keeping that goal alive. So keep in mind that self care is about continuously prioritizing your own well being, even when it's hard. Let's take a little bit more of an in depth look into creating healthy work life boundaries. When we don't have these healthy boundaries between work and our personal life, it can really make it feel like the workday never truly ends. We need to make that conscious effort to truly shed our work persona, to engage fully and more in our personal life so that we have those opportunities to rest and recharge. We already talked about having the opportunity to wind down. So, tying up those loose ends just before the end of your workday prepares you to set a firm boundary between home and work. So, tidy up your work area, write down any tasks that you have for tomorrow, and silence those work notifications on your phone. Another helpful tool is to set an intention. Make a conscious decision to set a firm boundary, and this will increase the chances of follow through. It also may help to pair your intention with a small, meaningful activity. One example of this could be as you're driving home from work, finding a landmark that you see every single day along that drive. And as you pass it, say to yourself, from this moment on, I am leaving work behind. Choose a container and put it by your front door. And when you get home, you could drop your keys in it or your work phone or any other work items and tell yourself, I'm done with work until tomorrow. A third way to be able to kind of set that intention with a meaningful practice is when you finish work, splash some cold water on your face and say to yourself, goodbye, work. and imagine rinsing away those work worries. Another tool that we want to use is modifying our environment. We want to make sure that our personal space look and feels distinct from our workspace. It is critical to be able to do that because your environment can make or break a work-life boundary. So when you get home, change into comfortable clothes. Use relaxing or invigorating lighting, scents, and music to kind of help yourself wind down. If you work from home, close off your workspace with partitions. Also, when you get home from work, change your behavior. Doing a non work activity lets you step into another role that creates the distance from work thoughts. Aim for an activity that helps you relax, recharge, and to get in a different mindset. So, after work, again, it's tempting to zone out on your phone or in front of the TV. Indulge in this for 15 minutes, then get up and do something more enticing and enriching. Immerse yourself in an activity distinct from your work, like playing with a pet, taking a walk, or visiting a friend. When work thoughts pop up, gently turn your attention away from them and refocus on the activity that you're doing. So be mindful of these activities as you are breaking away from your workday. I hope that some of these thoughts and some of this discussion will help you continuing to make that healthy work-life balance within your own life. And think about maybe one or two of these things that you can do starting this next week. And continue to focus in on taking care of yourself first. Remember, as I said in the very first episode, you can't pour from an empty cup. Thank you for joining me again today. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.